Yeah, there's no clause. It should be before everybody now, so please go ahead and vote for or against. And it is carried. Confirmation of the minutes of the council meeting of October the 3rd. The errors or omissions of the minutes. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move the October 3rd minutes as presented.
Any discussion? Go ahead and vote, please. And that is carried. Reports, planning and development. Lori?
Hello, Mr. Chairman. Oops, here we go. Hello, Mr. Chairman, Council. So this is my quarterly report to the end of September of this year. And as you know, we've been busy in the Planning and Development Department. So I'll just give you a quick overview, and if there's any questions or comments, feel free to jump in when you need to. So this report, we'll go through the planning project. So we did have two planning projects underway. So we just finished the Turin and Iron Springs growth studies this year, and we're starting the Shaughnessy and Diamond City studies. So that's with the Steve Hardy and the Old Man River Regional Services Commission. They're doing the majority of the work on those for me. We're almost done all of the rural-to-rural IDPs. Today will be the last of the rural-to-rural IDPs, but coming for a public hearing this afternoon. The other three have been completed and approved by County Council, and they were also approved by the other municipality which they were in. So that's good. And we are, just as a note, I will be working on some amendments to the Coaldale Intermunicipal Development Plan with Spencer Croyle at the town, just to update it due to the annexation, and then also for the MGA revisions. We hadn't done that one yet. And Orsk, so Steve Hardy and Diane Horvath are working on the Barron's IDP. There's a grant that Barron's had, so that's kind of covering part of the cost for that. So that's going on, and we'll be setting up a meeting to discuss that with the committee members in the next couple weeks, I think. So I will be submitting, or I have submitted a subdivision for the CP rail lands for the in Turin. So that's part of the growth study that we did for Turin. We identified the old CP station lands on the north side of the hamlet for light industrial, hamlet industrial uses. So we have set a design, and we'll be bringing forward a subdivision in the next 60 days, let's say. And the group country residential strategy, land use strategy has started. We just had a bit of a delay with Mike Bly being away for a little while here, so but that should be back on track next month or so. For the development officer, so Sarah Mitchell, just wanted to change it so that we got a better scope of what Sarah does in the county. So she, till the end of September, 152 development permit applications were received, 43 were issued, 2 permits were refused, and the remaining were still in circulation. Of the permits that were issued, the majority were residential and accessory buildings. There were 25 commercial, industrial, 33 agricultural buildings, so that would be like sheds, barns, those types of structures. 8 signage, 9 home occupations, 1 recreational, and 1 institutional. So that is slightly above what we did last year, more on par with what we had in previous years. So it's pretty busy. There's lots of inquiries and lots of things going on in the county with regards to development permitting. Sarah also does all the compliance letters for the county. So when somebody purchases a property or wants to sell a property, they want to get a letter of compliance from the municipality just saying that their property complies with the bylaws. So Sarah's done 41 of those so far this year. regards to building permits that we have with Park Enterprises, 421 permits have been received, which is slightly below what there was last year. And so it depends on kind of what's going on, I guess, in the county. They're fairly unpredictable. They somewhat follow development permits, but people can be upgrading and they can get electrical, plumbing, gas permits aside from the building permits. So as the years go on and we're working with that, we'll kind of maybe hopefully see some more trends in that. We'll be able to have a little bit more prediction in that. The subdivision authority made decisions on 22 subdivision applications, 21 were approved and 1 was refused. There was 1 appeal this year that was held in January, and since that time is year where we've gone to an intermunicipal appeal board, and we'll see how that's going to work. We don't have any appeals on the horizon, but we'll see how that particular concept works probably in the future. Redesignations, we had 13 bylaw amendments, and that were approved by County Council and 1 that's currently in process. For area structure plans, we've had 2 that were approved by County Council, and the airport area structure plan I'm still waiting for the consultant to bring me something, so. And that's through the city, obviously, now that they're under ownership of the airport. We had that text amendment to the Hamlet Industrial District that was approved by council. And then with regards to intermunicipal relations, we had an amendment to the IDP with the town of Nobleford, which was approved by both councils. And Picture Butte has submitted their notice to annex the land east of the town, northeast of the town of Picture Butte. And we have had a couple of administrative meetings just about that in terms of how they, in terms of compensation essentially. So we'll bring more information to council once things have been set, and we'll probably present that. And then I think that's about it. I did mention that we're working with the town of Coaldale. I think we have a council meeting with the town of Coaldale coming up at the end of this month? November. And we have a council to council with Colehurst at the end of this month. Colehurst. So we are still working, having our intermunicipal relations. I think things are going relatively well. We have a few little things on the horizon, but nothing that's causing any concern at this point in time. Are there any questions of council about the report? Anything that you noted or would like to ask about?
Yes. Go ahead, Morris.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We all know, of course, that the town of Picture Butte is gonna go ahead with the annexation. I suppose we didn't have no official application yet from the government that they did.
We have the notice of intent, so they have done.
But was that from the Alberta government or?
Yep, we've received, that was from the municipal government board, that we
Okay.
received a letter saying that the town has submitted their notice of
Yeah.
intent, yeah.
So we probably have certain procedures in place that we're gonna either okay or object to, right?
Well, we already talked about that in the summer with council. Council sent a letter saying that there was no concerns with regards to the annexation as it complied with the municipal development plan. So now we're working with the town on, with regards to compensation for the annexation. That's where it sits today.
Morris, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, no, I think we said this summer down there, like they have all the right to do what they're doing down on there. However, maybe we're gonna put some objection into it, why we should keep it in the county. And I think we had numerous good reasons why we should keep it in the county, because the vicinity to Picture Butte down there, it's a good area for us to develop to, and I thought we were gonna go approach it at that level.
Councilor Easter, through the chair, we can definitely approach that. I'll talk to Ann about that to see where we're at with regards to that. Because council did send out a letter in the summer saying that they had no objections to the annexation.
Yeah, thank you. Can I, Mr. Chairman? Thank you. I didn't realize that we did
Yeah.
send such thing that we got no objection. I thought we did have an objection, but I guess if you send it to such a if you got no objections, if you got no objections, well, we just will sit on our hands and not do anything, but I mean, that was not my feeling.
Okay.
My recollection is that we have an IDP, and in the IDP, there is that clause that they do have the right to request annexation,
Yeah,
so.
I got no problem with that.
Yeah, so in those parameters, I think moving forward, we have to ensure that if it does happen, that the county is properly compensated. I think that's our,
So as I recall, the letter did say that, we didn't object to the annexation proposal. However, we certainly wish that they would consider a
Yes.
joint venture. However, they're not doing that, and, so now, I guess, moving forward, if they decide not to give us anything in lieu of annexation, that would certainly be an objection to that.
Right, and so those are, Mr. Chairman, the discussions that we've had with the CAO, with the town of Picture at this point in time. So I think maybe an update to council for the next meeting would be appropriate, just to kind of see, we're not sure where their next steps are, so I think once we have that, then we can present that as a whole to council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think there was talk about compensation for them going on their own.
There generally is, so that's where we're kind of in the midst, and we'll figure out where they settle, and then that's what we'll present back to council and see where we wanna, what information we wanna send out from there.
Anything else? So I have two questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about Coaldale. So I think the last time I saw the news, they had an ad in the paper about the development of where the school and the rec center is going, and across the road where they're thinking about doing a hotel, I think it is. Have you got anything from them in regards to those plans, or?
So, Mr. Chairman, when I get intermunicipal referrals from them, it's generally on rezoning applications, just to say they're going from this, like, similar with what we have from this zone to this zone, and I provide comments to make sure that it complies with our intermunicipal development plan, and that there's no conflicts with regards to land uses on the county side. So yes, I am aware of, specifically I know about the school side. I'm not too sure about the hotel, because that might be a little bit too far in for me to get a notice of that. If it's, would that be by the home hardware?
And I think it's east of, or west of, what's the name of the nursery there?
Yeah,
Oh,
Coaldale
Coaldale
Nurseries.
Nurseries?
yeah.
And I think that's where it is.
West of the nursery or east of the nursery?
No,
West.
west.
West, okay. Still might be, because the boundary changed
Yeah.
quite significantly, so I don't get notification if it's not adjacent anymore.
Well, okay. It wouldn't, I don't think it would be immediately
No.
adjacent, but it's.
Because there's
adjacent.
Evergreen Estates, and then there's a quarter section
Yeah,
of land
yeah.
in there, so that's
That's where I think it is.
on the quarter section?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't received anything about a zoning for the hotel, but, generally, their planning department's pretty on top of sending me the referral, so.
Okay. And my other question was, and maybe you're not asking the right person on this, but, was the septic change from going from the provincial government to municipalities? They've been talking quite a bit about that in how it would affect, how we have to do things.
Right.
So have you heard any, or they sent out anything on that?
I haven't heard anything directly, but I have heard some information from Park Enterprises, because they're the ones who do the inspections of septic facilities, in our municipality, obviously. So there is some talk of it being transitioned from the province to municipalities in terms of the oversight, but I'm not sure where that's sitting at this point in time, but I can definitely make a point of, looking into that. I know that we did receive there was maybe just a conversation with Park Enterprises a while back saying that there was some of this talk going on, but I don't think anything has been formally changed as of yet. But good thing to look into, because there could be potentially some impacts to the municipality in terms of like, well, how do we enforce it? I mean, we still have a responsibility now as being an accredited agency to ensure that they're being inspected, but if there's anything further to that, then that's something that we'll have to look into that, so.
Any other questions? Seeing none, can we have a motion to accept the report for information?
What's up?
Klon,
I didn't hear Paul.
he had his hand up first. He's very quiet.
So bad, that's why I deferred.
It's before you now, I'll go ahead and vote.
There you go.
Are you for or against? Or did you get it now? It's carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So bylaw 19-0-10, and that is to rescind second and third reading of bylaw 19-010, and reading second and third, and it's for the Darien Brethren Church of Turin, for the road closure and sale of property. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, councilors. Just bear with me while I call the map up here so I can show you where we're talking. It always helps to have a little visual. I'm sure we're all familiar on the Sundial Road, the Turin colony there. We discussed this back in May where they want to blow the right away right through their property and connect their parcels. So just bring that up again. We're north of the river, just northwest of Turin.
Just a quick question while you're looking there. So is the information in the agenda different than on the sheets that go with it? Because you got two different bylaw numbers. You got 18-0110.
I just caught that this morning, Mr.
Oh,
Chairman.
okay.
Yeah, I apologize.
So it should be 19 or?
It should be 19, yes.
Oh, okay.
My apologies. So now that we have this up on the screen, you can see that this right-of-way is empty and at the moment not being used. The colony wishes to mine gravel from beneath it, and we have given them a endorsement letter allowing them to proceed with fisheries and mines. So we'll just continue on with the executive summary here. Administration is requesting county council approve this road closure, sale, and consolidation on this unused county road right-of-way as per bylaw 19-010. Darien Brethren Church of Turin at a cost of $10,604 for 4.82 acres. This price was based on the cost given to us from the county assessor. At the public hearing for this bylaw, second and third readings were mistakenly given approval at the wrong time during the closure procedure. We must now rescind the prior second and third readings of this bylaw before we can legitimately complete second and third readings at today's meeting. I hope I haven't lost anybody. Further to that, council direction in the past has been as per Lethbridge County Policy 109A, road allowance closure and sale. And some of the background, the Turin colony would like to close, purchase, and consolidate portions of this road right-of-way. Municipal Services foresees no future use of this undeveloped right-of-way. The colony has agreed to consolidate this right-of-way into their parcel, and the colony has also requested this closure because they wish to expand their operations across the road right-of-way and connect their parcels. So from the imagery, you can see that they own both parcels on each side of the right-of-way, and what they'd like to do is connect them, and then they can move freely within their own lands. Alternatives and analysis would be that the county not proceed with this request, and as an alternative, close and license in lieu of a closure. The financial implications will be that the owners will pay all of the survey and registration costs. The cost cost to purchase and consolidate this will be $10,604 plus GST, as approved and provided by the county assessor. The reasons and recommendations for this closure will be to allow the Turner Colony to add this portion of right-of-way to their parcel and increase its value and connect their neighboring parcels, as we just saw on the map. Municipal Services are following council's direction to sell unused road right-of-ways. And our recommendation to council is that county council rescind second and third readings of bylaw 19-010 from the May 16th, 2019 meeting. And once that is complete, reread second and third readings for bylaw 19-010. Any questions?
Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just with the rescinding and everything, does that mean we've had approval from the Minister of Transportation and just now is the proper time to do second and third?
Potable water line on this road right here, which is Sunset Strip. So due to the modifications of the existing road to accommodate drainage, the ditch had to be lowered in some locations, which requires our water line to be lowered as well. The Alberta Environment and Parks minimum depth is 2.3 meters, so that's what we want to directionally drill those 3 water line crossings to. We do have an estimated cost to lower these, which is approximately $14,000, which does include a $2,000 contingency for unforeseen circumstances. And the contractor is ready to get in there next week pending approval from council. So the recommendation is that County Council approves the lowering of 3 water lines in Sunset Acres with a total estimated cost of $14,000 to be funded through the utility reserve. Some background information: the Sunset Acres project has been under construction for some time and is expected to be completed by the end of October. The water line lowering could be completed after the roadway work is finished, but we anticipate that toll strips out there right now working on that road, they're going to mobilize out of there for next week and allow the water line lowerings to occur, and in addition some electrical lines to be lowered, and then the following week they'll come in and clean everything up and be done by the end of October. So that's the tentative plan for right now. Alternatives, really there is no alternatives. If we leave those water lines in their current state, they most likely will freeze during the winter time, and we'll have to go out there and complete repairs on them. Financial impact, $14,000 from the utility reserve, and in discussions with Ann, we're going to be looking at funding these types of utility projects from the reserve for future projects as well. Just that money is set aside for these types of projects, so we're going to start to utilize the utility reserve for the utility portion of some of our projects. And that's pretty much it. Are there any questions?
Yes. One, thank you, Mr. Chairman. What's the population of that Sunset Acres down there?
The number of people in Sunset Acres?
That's population.
I don't know that, Councilor Zinstra, I apologize. I can tell you the number of lots out there just by counting, but I can't tell you the people out there, sorry.
Lots?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. How much does the line have to be lowered, and what is the size of the line?
So, I'll just zoom in a little bit. This walking path right here is actually where the main line runs. So, right here where the cursor is a, I believe, a 3-inch main line. That's one of the lines that needs to be lowered. And then there's a service connection to this house and this house as well that need to be lowered. So it's just this little area right there. And so 2 are service connections, 1 is main.
And how much does it have to be lowered?
Oh, it looks like it's gonna be about 1.5 meters is what that much. Yeah.
That's quite a bit.
Yes.
That for sure will freeze.
Yeah, if we don't lower it, yeah.
Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would those have had to been engineered to be at a certain depth when it was constructed there back?
Yes, they should have been engineered to be at a certain depth, and from what I understand, we haven't had problems with freezing out there. Granted, when water is moving through a line, you can have a little shallower depth because it's moving and it won't freeze as much. But the records we got for the water line out there were very poor, so when we started this project, we really didn't know where those lines were. And then throughout the course of construction, we found that there's gonna be the 3 conflicts.
Then, how long ago was the water line installed there?
Oh, that's a very good question, Councillor Vanderveen. I believe when the subdivision was created, that water line was put in. It was a Sunlaw Co-op that originally put that line in, and then it got handed over to the county. So, Reed Hickey, do you recall, was it maybe mid-70s that Sunset?
It has to be,
Yeah.
if not before that.
It's closer, probably in the sixties.
Okay.
That's pretty good since then.
Go ahead, Ann.
And just to further what Devin was speaking about, what we're trying to do with these capital projects now is whatever utility portion is part of the capital project, use that percentage, so we're getting a clearer picture of what is utilities and what is the actual capital projects. So that's how we're gonna fund it through that mechanism.
So one other question, are any of those two services you have to lower, are they any of the ones that don't have cisterns, and are you asking them to put a cistern in while you're lowering it?
I am not aware if they have a cistern or not.
Okay.
I believe a few years ago, our utilities department went and visited everybody
Yeah,
to check
they
up
did.
on that.
Yeah.
And some didn't have cisterns. What transpired from that, I'm not sure if there were some enforcement measures to make them hook back up. I'd have to check with Craig Praskich on that.
Well, I know some of them didn't even have a cistern, period.
I believe that, yeah, on direct pressure. So
Yeah.
when we do these lowerings, if they come out saying we've got no water, then my rebuttal will be, your cistern should have water. And then they maybe will say, well, I don't have a cistern.
Perhaps we can check and see where that's at.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
On the residence there that was complaining about the lowering of that and his trailer.
Yes.
Did you have any information to make him happy or?
Yep, it's something that I did have MPE look at, and it looked a little worse on site than it will be, because the elevation of the road when he was looking at is to the bottom of the gravel layer, so they have to still build the gravel up and the asphalt. So it looks a lot worse than it's gonna be in the end, but they're gonna do some calculations and see what that grade is gonna be. And we do have an option to go back into his driveway a little bit further and make that a little smoother transition for him. So that's what we're looking into now.
Any other questions? Not, could use the motion.
Almost so.
Any further discussion? Anybody else have?
I don't have it yet.
Oh, yeah, it's coming up now.
Well, how do I
Oh,
vote?
it's blank so far.
I can't vote, that's nice.
You guys got any?
No, I don't have any. Oh, good.
That's your old one, too. That's the last one.
So let's do it the old fashioned way. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Devin.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Find out, Papa.
Next one is the Old Man Watershed Council funding request.
Go down there.
Well, there's nothing in the box, yeah. Can you just take it down, Donna?
Is it, should be down. My screen's kind of.
Oh, there it comes. Now we got enough.
Just X out of it. Just X out.
Yeah, we're done.
Okay, Jen.
Good morning.
Maureen.
So on October 2nd of this year, the county received a letter from the Old Man Watershed Council requesting a contribution from the county based on our per capita at 47 cents to assist with some of their funding initiatives and projects. Council has in the past funded the Old Man watershed since 2004, I believe, it says in my notes here. And we did have a resolution previous to fund from the period of 2014 to 2018. At that time, it was at 30 cents per capita, which is what they had sent in the letter. So it has increased quite a bit to 47 cents. Within the 2019 budget, we did allocate some funds with the anticipation that we would receive a 2019 request. It's a little bit shy. I believe we put it in at 40 cents. So there'd be a $721, I guess, difference between what was budgeted and what they've requested. However, I have recommended, or administration has recommended, to approve the funding request from the Old Man Watershed Council in the amount of $4,865.91 to be funded from that council's operating budget, where we have the grants to individuals and organizations budgeted. And then moving forward, we can just include it in the annual budget line, I guess, and council can approve it as part of the budget process if you choose to continue to support this organization.
Any questions, comments? Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did they give in any indication why, I guess in the letter, why the 30 to 40% increase?
The letter wasn't really clear on the
Yeah.
increase. I'm just surmising that the projects and initiatives that they have going are just probably costing a bit more than previous or historically.
I know they've been busy planting trees in the headwaters, so I don't know whether that has an additional cost to that or not. Claus?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we had that little presentation when we had that tour at the cheese factory, and I thought that really helped for people to know what was going on and what they were all doing, and I think that kind of justifies this increase.
Tori?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move the recommendation that County Council approve the funding request from the Old Man Watershed Council in the amount of $4,865.91 to be funded from the council operating budget.
Any discussion? Call for the question. Those in favor or opposed? Go ahead and vote. It is carried. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Yeah, do the St. Mary's and Lethbridge Northern collaborative agreement.
Good morning. One of the things that we've been working on since 2018 is improved relationships with the irrigation districts. At Foothills Little Bow last year, we put forward a resolution that was discussed, and we formed a working group to talk to the different MDs and counties and irrigation districts. Administratively, both the executive directors of both SMRID and LNID and I have been meeting quite regularly to improve our working relationship. This framework agreement is more or less a document that shows how we will be working together. And out of this, we've already had some success with our relationship. Devin, right after this, will be presenting something that's a joint project between the SMRD and the county. So I am recommending that council support this agreement. Both the LNID board and the SMRD board have already approved this framework agreement, and they would like to have a joint meeting with everybody just to show the collaboration after, if council approves this.
So just a quick question, what about the water conveyance agreements we signed? Are they still in place, or is this part of, separate from this agreement, or?
That's a good question. They're separate from this agreement, but I know there was some issues with the present one that we have with SMRID. We're working, the executive director and I are going back and making the agreement so that it's more palatable for the county. But it is separate from this framework agreement.
Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just like to make the comment, you know, like, we've probably been working on this for as long as I've been on council, you know, like trying to get a good, better relationship and also working with the irrigation districts, and it looks like we're going in the right direction now. So, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the background information, it mentions out of these meetings, we're able to bring our concerns to the province. What, did we have meetings with provincial representatives, or?
No, not yet, but there is some joint lobbying that we want to do, and then at Foothills Little Bow at the last meeting, we did mention that to the other MDs. I know Alan Harold from LNID has some specific things that he wants to work on with the legislation, but we haven't done that yet. After this is signed, what our next plan is to get some coordinated joint lobbying together, then bring it to council for approval.
Great stuff. Steve, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know this is a good start of working together. Out of these meetings, I think the intent was that we would have some reliable bridge funding and everything. It kind of says in here that the parties can opt not to participate, so that to me, it doesn't really show that we are going to work together or we're going to have reliable bridge funding. It's just a little concerning.
The only reason that's in there, Councillor Campbell, is because if a project is only in the SMRID area and not the LNID area, they wanted to make sure that they weren't married to projects that didn't affect them. So that line is in there simply so that if it's between the county and SMRID or the county and LNID, the third party would be expected to pay, and that was just for protection of those parties.
Okay.
Bob?
I'd like to move the recommendation for Leathers County sign the SMRD LNID collaborative agreement.
Any further discussion? Seeing none? It is shipping before you now, please go ahead and vote. And that is carried unanimously. Thanks, Ann. Let's move down to the next one, which is, Bridge file 72098, rehabilitation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'll just pull it up on the map here. If you gentlemen are unfamiliar with the bridge file. Okay, so my cursor here, this is the Brown Road. And the bridge file I'm referring to today is this crossing right here, I believe. Yes. So bridge file 72098 has been identified as requiring rehabilitation. There's excessive corrosion and undermining in the current crossing. It's a 64-inch corrugated steel pipe connected to a head wall and an end treatment as it's tied to the SMRID drop structure. The proposed rehab strategy is a 54-inch smooth wall steel or HDPE liner in the existing CSP, as this method is most economical for the crossing and will still accommodate irrigation flows. As this crossing is on a haul route, this method also greatly reduces the disruption to traffic. Jeremy and I did meet with the SMRID to discuss this crossing, and through that meeting, they verbally committed to a 50% funding of it, and they also will manage the project for us. It's anticipated that this project will cost approximately $160,000 based on a Volker Staten estimate in 2016. There's a bit of inflation added on there, and the SMRID is currently waiting for a revised estimate. In 2016, it was $140,000, but I built in a little bit of inflation just to account for that, and looking at doing it prior to April in 2020. The recommended motion is that County Council approve the rehabilitation of Bridge File 72098 in partnership with the St. Mary River Irrigation District with a total project upset value of $160,000 to be funded 50-50 by Lethbridge County and the SMRID, with Lethbridge County funding $80,000 from the Public Works Project Reserve. Previous council direction and policy, collaboration with the irrigation districts on infrastructure upgrades. We think this is a prime candidate to partner with the SMRID, as we both have interest in this crossing. Some background information: the latest bridge inspection indicates that the crossing was constructed in 1968 and has a current rating of 33 with a recommended replacement year of 2020, so we're right on track there. Some alternatives: we could replace the bridge valve through the traditional excavation method, but that'll increase the cost and it'll disrupt traffic, and it's on a base stabilized road, so there'll be additional costs there to bring the road back to the base stabilized state. Financial impact: $80,000 to be funded from the project Public Works Project Reserve, which currently has a balance of approximately $2.8 million. And the reason for recommendation: this proposed rehabilitation will extend the life of the crossing by approximately 50 years and is a great project to partner with the SMRID. Is there any questions from council?
Ross?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you explain the condition rating of 33?
It's based out of 100, so when you get in that 33 range, you have to do something fairly imminently to the bridge file, whether you repair it or replace it. 33 is a pretty low rating for bridge files.
Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it probably started to restrict the flow for the St. Mary's at that area, I imagine, because of the age of it already, and I'm sure he increased the flow over the years to go through that. So it's basically a win-win situation for St. Mary's and also for us that we jointly going to fund that one. So I thought I would like to move that recommendation.
Yes, go ahead, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have money available in the funding our future, since we do have that bridge component in there for funding bridge projects?
I'll turn that over to Jen.
There is money in the bridge reserve that we could use as well.
Would it be better to use it as that, since that's what it was intended for, or do we have another project this winter, I guess, in the books to use that money for?
Councillor Campbell, through the chair, that reserve is specific to the haul route networks. I guess all the bridges are on the haul route network. So I guess it's up to council whether or not, to determine whether or not this is a sufficient project for that type of funding. I know through the budget, which you'll be seeing in late November, there are a lot of projects for which we've allocated funding out of that reserve, or and with the transfers coming forward throughout the next few years. So I can't say off the top of my head what that leaves the balance at and how that would impact any of the projects that Devon has in the budget already.
Could you just kind of explain that just a gap further? We have a reserve account for the business tax collection?
Yeah, so we set up through the business tax or market access network program 3 reserves. So one is for future calcium-based stabilization, maintenance or replacement, or rehab, whatever you want to call it. One is for bridges, and then hard top reserve. So any of the money we collect is going to those reserves, so it's specifically used to fund the market access network programs. So it's sort of a holding place annually. So each year we collect that money, we put it into the reserves, and then as we proceed with those projects, we fund it out of there.
So you also pay down the debenture through that?
Yes, a portion of the business tax funds is allocated directly towards the debenture payment, which is about $735,000.
Great.
And that's just for, the all roads?
Yeah, for all of the market access network capital or assets.
Go ahead.
Just a curiosity question, so you put into the 3 reserves, and how do you proportionally divide it up into those reserves?
Just as we had assigned it through the budget. So there's the 500,000 annually that goes to the hardtop reserve, 735,000 goes against the loan. And then the bridge portion and the roads portion is split up as we have in the budget.
Thank you.
So, just one other question, that's to Devin, I guess. When you go down from a 64-inch diameter pipe to a 54, is that gonna have enough capacity to deal with the flow?
Yes.
That's quite a significant drop in volume.
It is, yeah. When you have a corrugated steel pipe, it reduces the velocity of the water. So when you go to a smooth wall steel, there's not that velocity reduction, and you can put more water through a smaller smooth wall pipe than a larger corrugated steel pipe. So that's why that 54-inch was selected. It'll accommodate the same flows as that corrugated steel pipe.
So it's like a little check there. The corrugated pipe.
Oh, yeah, corrugated pipes are great in accesses and centerline culverts because they help prevent erosion by slowing down the velocity of the water. That's why you don't see smooth wall pipes in ditches, because you have a lot of scouring in your ditches because the velocities will be higher.
Okay, Lance?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Would it not be wiser to have the pipe larger because of, in the future, increases in water flows and stuff like that? Or is there plenty of room left for that?
Yes, Councillor Vanderveen, that size was, I believe, selected by the SMRID. They went and got the quote from Volker Steffen and discussed with them what their flow rate requirements are, and came up with that 54-inch, which they feel will accommodate future flows as well. Thank you.
Any other questions? Please motion then.
I move.
Oh, you did, sorry. I wrote it down too. It's before you now, please go ahead and vote. That carried. Thank you. Thank you. And then the next up is the drug and alcohol revised policy 138.
Good morning, Council. Thank you for the opportunity today. I am here to present some revisions we've made to the drug and alcohol policy. The last policy that we had published by County Council was published in 2001. And as I'm sure you're all very well aware, we've seen a lot of changes in legislation since 2001. That being said, I'm confident that we're not through the legislation changes and that there still will be change coming. However, we wanted to take the opportunity to update and modernize our policy so that we can have it as a best practice policy and ensure that it protects our workers, the safety of our people that are coming to work every day, as well as any users of our roadways or anything of that nature. So the revised policy that I am presenting today we have shared it with QP for feedback and make sure that we have their support before we bring through a policy that they wouldn't support. And they were in support of the policy as drafted and in front of you. The updated policy has been through a legal review, so at the current time, it does meet all of the legislation requirements under federal legislation, provincial legislation, occupational health and safety, human rights, accommodation, things of that nature. So there are quite a few moving parts in this policy. Our policy will help us make sure that we treat all of our staff members fairly and consistently, as well as helping people. Substance abuse is a disease, and we want to support people that are in that realm, and our policy has opportunities for people to disclose a dependency and support and accommodation to be offered to get them back on track. The private sector, I would say, has been leading the charge on updating policies around drugs and alcohol, and have done kind of more advanced than what I've seen in municipalities so far. As far as I know, all of the municipalities here in the south that I've spoken to aren't doing pre-employment testing today, and it is still a complicated subject matter. Things are before the courts, and I definitely don't think we want to be the leader in a legal battle on that front. However, the revised policy will keep watching legislation and make sure that it is up to date, and as new information becomes available or legalization changes under different government, that we will keep it up to date and make sure that if there are revisions required, I'll bring those back. The financial impact to date is the staff time that's gone into drafting this policy. Myself, as well as Maria, the supervisors, Jeremy, have all had a chance to review that policy and provide input and feedback. There were also legal fees, having that vetted by a lawyer and making sure it's a policy that we can hold to, and if we were challenged on it, that we can meet those challenges. It is hard to quantify the costs associated with a drug and alcohol policy, but definitely having a good best practice policy should reduce organizational costs in things of WCB premiums, training, investigation, and lost productivity if there ever was an accident. So the recommendation I put before council is to update the modernized, revised drug and alcohol policy 138 as a full rewrite to the 2001 policy. Do you have any questions?
So how much of the old one is in what's in front of us?
There's a lot of consistent things that are in there still, so we would have the ability to, so we have a zero tolerance policy at work. Nobody is allowed to be using drugs and alcohol at work. If they are, prescribed medication, there's an accommodation and making sure that there's discussion about that and medical clearance, that they're okay to work, and we would work through all of those scenarios. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, can you remind me of your exact?
So I guess it's hard to know what's
Oh, the
new
same
and
thing.
what's not new in it.
Yeah, so
Does.
it's
So I
really,
just-
it's really just modernized. It had the same things in there, post-incident testing, reasonable suspicion testing. Those were already in there before, but with legalization of cannabis, there are accommodation things that needed to be included in the new policy that weren't in legislation in 2001.
Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Danny, I didn't read the whole 17 pages down there, but it's probably in on the, like when there is a certain issue with a certain person down there, when it's alcohol or drugs or whatever, what steps does the county take to work with that person and get it under control?
Yeah, so the policy is that if somebody is dealing with that they would disclose that to their supervisor, and with that disclosure, we would work to accommodate them. So it is considered under human rights a disease, and so accommodation has to be a first thing. We have to accommodate to the point of undue hardship, but not beyond that, so determining what that exactly looks like. But we would possibly get them into a treatment program, give them a leave of absence from work until they're able to get things under control. And then when they do return to work, we will put in some drug testing to make sure that they're compliant with the treatment program, that they were given time away and a leave to undertake.
No different. So,
It is in 17 pages too, just so you know, it's a longer policy for sure, but that did include the old policy in there. We know that having the long policy is hard for our staff to read and get through and make sure they understand those contents, and if approved, we'll make sure that we go through the training. And there would be the last page, which is definitely an important page for everybody to understand, that they would sign off that they're aware of that policy and they agree to abide by that policy. And that would be a great chance for people that are struggling to disclose and look for accommodation if required.
so could you just kind of work-related activities, Does that cover social activities?
It does give us an out there as approved, right, so on work time, so we are not paid to go to social activities like our, employee recognition night and things like that. But it does have the approval of the CAO in there, so there could still be a little bit of flexibility, around, special events or as approved by council.
I just wanted to add something too, while we're making these updates and changes to policy, both Dan and Maria do a really good job. They make sure they go to pitch review. They also make sure that they do, very clear training and education on the policies, because instead of just saying to staff, here's a new policy, sign it, they go over everything and have a pretty good interactive session with them, so that they're really aware of what is in that policy before they sign off on it.
Any other questions or discussion? Dory?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move the recommendation that county council approve policy 138, drug and alcohol as amended.
Any further discussion on that? So when it comes up, we can go ahead and vote. Thank you for the work you put in. I know it's not easy to review all of that.
It is not the most enjoyable subject matter, that's for sure, and, there's so many different, it came out well. I'm happy with the end product, for sure.
And that is carried. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the invitations. And the first one is Remembrance Day ceremony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So an invitation for Reborn Nikki was received by administration for the Royal Canadian Legion's Remembrance Day Parade and service scheduled for Monday, November 11th, 2019 at Lethbridge Exhibition Park. As a dignitary, the Reeve has been asked to lay a wreath on behalf of Lethbridge County at the ceremony, and then going to City Hall for a ceremony at the cenotaph. The Reeve has attended this event in the past, and the county acknowledges the importance of council members attending Remembrance Day events to recognize the sacrifice of Canadians. Therefore, administration's recommendation is that the Reeve or his designate be authorized to attend the Royal Canadian Legion Remembrance Day Parade and service scheduled for Monday, November 11th, 2019.
Thank you. Just one question on that. What about the one in Coaldale and Culvers and Richview? Nobleford too? Okay, so.
So as far as I know, we have not received any official invitations from those communities as of yet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I received a verbal invitation from the Lions of Richview.
They need to send us in a letter.
I know they need to send us a letter. They also need to send us a bill yet for the wreath, but apparently they don't know how to use a pen, so they do not do all that extra work. It's Ralph that's in charge of that, and Ralph said, I don't do that.
So Maddie's gonna look into that.
So I have no intention of, and I would never think of charging for something like that, but I just think it would be nice to include all the other ones too, and I think it's just the commitment of council to go to things like that, just like a parade or anything else, but I mean, this is much higher level than that, so, Morris?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear. I've been going to the one in Richview for, I don't know how many years. I missed some of them down there, but I would like to see that the recommendation is down there, like each council of their area, if they have one of these ceremonies going on, that they please attend if they can. Something to that. Very important.
Awesome.
And with that too, I think we will put it on our monthly to-do list that we, that you can see that we have attended.
Yeah, as long as you don't charge for it. Who's gonna make, did you make that motion, Morris? Dory?
Mr. Chairman, maybe just just because of the date and with RMA, if council isn't able to attend because of travel plans, and that maybe, I would go along with what you suggested, Mr. Reed, that we allow council to attend any of the upcoming Remembrance Day ceremonies, but maybe just with the caveat that if we're not able to attend, we send along our regrets and that we're not able to attend.
You making that motion?
I would make that motion, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
good, thanks. Any further discussion? Okay. Okay, it's before you go ahead and vote. It is carried. Let's do, Southern Alberta Water Security Forum.
Okay. So we received an invitation from the South Grow Regional Initiative, inviting council to select one representative to attend the Southern Alberta Water Security Forum. It's scheduled for November 7th, 2019 from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Coast Hotel. So the invitation states that the forum is intended to convene the key stakeholders in the Milk River and Oldman River basins to form a united group that can advance water security projects in the region. There will be speakers and panels presenting on water security issues in Southern Alberta. And then provincial, municipal, and industry stakeholders have all been invited to the forum. The invitation also included a draft memorandum of understanding. And South Grow has asked that participants that will be attending the forum review the MOU and bring any proposed amendments to the forum. They have indicated that they will propose that all delegates sign and ratify the MOU at the forum. So although a council meeting is scheduled for the same day, administration recognizes the important role that water plays in our region and therefore recommends that council appoint one representative to attend a Southern Alberta Water Security Forum scheduled for November 7th.
Who's our representative there? South Grow. Ross?
I'll move that Bob attend this, the representative to go to the Southern Alberta Water Security Forum.
Morris, did you have a?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also feel if, somebody from the irrigation committee should attend also, because this is focused quite a bit towards irrigation too. The importance of this organization.
Well, I do understand what you're saying, just so long as we don't get down to the fact where we don't have enough of council to have a forum. With two away, I mean,
Yeah, sure.
but
But if Morris wants to go,
Well, November the 7th,
yeah. If he wants to
hopefully
go.
we'll be on the flight to somewhere.
Oh,
Okay.
so who else is on the irrigation committee?
Awesome.
Oh. So you'll be away,
I hope, yes.
Steve, go ahead. No, it's okay.
The invitation, or their conference, it's only one, they're only asking for one person from any municipality, I think is what I read, so I think we should best be stick to that. Otherwise, they get twice as many people as they sort of anticipate.
You said select one. Okay, so it's, okay. Okay,
Sorry, is it Claus or Bob?
Bob going.
well, we gotta vote on it.
Yeah, yeah, we gotta put you on the road.
Is So you're going what day, Morris? Just out of curiosity.
If we're all, we're leaving on the Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah, just coming back.
That's why they had them out.
They're gonna keep them there.
They may throw them out. I'm just curious if you're gonna be here for the next council meeting. Yeah.
Morris, did you move that?
Plaza.
I'm gonna be at the RMA if I'm not. The council meetings. Look at the cuts. Be able to see.
Okay, so the motion is before you, please go ahead and vote. And it is also carried. The next one is the Friends of St. Joseph School Playground opening, October 25.
Okay, so this is the last invitation I have for you today. We received an invitation for council to attend the official opening of the St. Joseph School Playground on Friday, October 25th at 9:45 a.m. Council had provided the Friends of St. Joseph School Society with a $10,000 grant under the 2019 Community Grant Program for upgrades and redevelopment of the St. Joseph School Playground. Council has attended similar events in the past for projects funded through the Community Grant or Municipal Reserve programs. So administration's recommendation is that any member of council wishing to attend the St. Joseph School Playground opening event scheduled for October 25th, 2019 be authorized to do so.
Any discussion on that? Klaus?
I think it's important that, somebody attends this, because, I mean, we also, were behind the grant, and, I think it's good to show our face there, so I'll move that, any member of council wishing to attend this, St. Joseph School Playground opening event be authorized to do so.
Any discussion on that? Questions before you, please go ahead and vote. That's carried. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Oh, who wants to go? Well, kind of Tories, and my kind of corners, you know, where you meet.
Yeah. Gordon?
I'm not sure if I can. I'll have to let you know, like, yeah.
Okay, yeah, if you just let me know. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to counselor updates. We got Kentucky Fried Chicken for lunch.
That's pretty good.
So on September the 2nd, I did attend the train derailment disaster up at Barron's. On September the 4th, met with the CAO. September the 5th was council meeting. September the 6th was mayors and reeves. And it was an interesting meeting. Halo is still very much a topic of discussion, and the last meeting we had just a couple weeks ago, the MLA's got raked over the coals pretty hard on that for the minister's comments at the AUMA convention, when he said that there would be no bridge funding or no funding going until a review was completed of the service. Actually, more or less, most of their answers were, and not at this time, we can't comment on anything. Then again, on the 9th, met with Ann. The 12th was the Ag Service Board. Oops. And, sorry, I added note and it's right above what they supposedly, how do you? Oh, okay. Yeah, met with the Solicitor General and the MLA for Lethbridge East. 19th was County Council, 20th was Foothills Little Bow, 23rd was RMA, 24th was Sustainability Tour, the 25th was Council, with Coffee with Council, and the 25th was also another date, no, the 26th is, oh, Lord. How do you move that down? Yeah, for the end, for our CEO meeting. Yeah. Yeah, Steve?
Hey, Mr. Chairman, how was the conference call on the RMA policing?
I think most people sort of recognize the fact that we're gonna have to pay a little bit. The biggest problem is the calculation of the formula. And, like, I think the counties who had a lot of money in the past and have very significant police force, but really pick on Strathcona County, are already contributing pretty heavily towards that anyways. But I mean, their population in Strathcona and Sherwood Park is, what, 105,000 now or something like that. So it really depends. But there's a lot of questions about what is a federal responsibility and what is a provincial responsibility and what should the municipalities be paying for. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know, the RMA put forth a suggestion paper to the minister. I think everybody got a copy of that. So they based their decisions on what they put down from that conference call. Like I say, I think eventually we're gonna have to pay something. Claus?
Well, you know, rumors are going around that it's gonna be about $400 per member. For, like, we have 10,300, and it's gonna be $400 there.
Per capita?
Per capita,
So,
and that sounds a little ridiculous to me.
okay, so at the Mayors and Reeds the other day, the president of AUMA was there, and their numbers come to between $200 and $315. So we'd be 2.2 million to 3.15 million a year. However, the city of Lethbridge, their cost of policing is a little over $340 per capita. So, you know, but, and I don't know whether that's gonna include the special constables they just hired, or the CPOs, or not include that number.
Further, I've had a meeting with the staff sergeant in the region from RCMP. He's gonna be coming on November 7th to talk to council, just about some changes that they're going to be doing to try and run a little leaner as well. And I think that may be because of this new policing model too. So that'll be in effect, and it will affect our costing as well too.
Claus?
Well, with that amount of money, we could have our own policing in place.
Well, if you go on what the city of Lethbridge is paying per capita, it's about the same cost. I guess the point that I brought up was, in any rural municipality, policing is kind of like fire. You know, you don't get them in 5 minutes. So usually by the time you get somebody, especially at night, if you have to call to Red Deer, I mean, it takes like 10 minutes, it seems like, to convince them of where you actually live. And then it's probably, you know, the next day before they arrive sometimes. So our service levels are not the same. So should the cost of service be the same? So but the AUMA says they're not backing down, and That's their position, period. So I don't know how much influence they're gonna have over the minister, but, I mean, they're tightening their belts pretty tight in Edmonton, so I think we should probably be prepared to have to pay something.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
The federal government gives the legislature and all the provinces what they need or what they allocate as members for that particular province. Now, how the province delegates that is up to them. And that's where they, so they can, they have the buildings and all the subdivisions and stuff like that. And what happened in Ontario, the OPP, okay, that was a big thing, and then the province decided they wanted to have their own, and then they found out that it was really expensive, but it took a long time to do it, and that's all controlled by them. And so I can't see the province or the federal government increasing the finance to what the RCMP position is. Now, there's different areas and some get different ways, but they're not likely to include CPOs. But that's because the CPO can't do any federal stuff the way it is. So, and that's where the RCMP is. Their mandate is for federal laws.
Awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Houston, like you said, it looks like the AUMA is not backing down.
No?
Okay, so what is the RMA, because I didn't hear the end result of what the phone call was with the RMA. What are we planning to do about that? Do we not have the same rights to our opinion than that the AUMA does?
So the RMA has put forward a paper, and everybody should have got that, to what they sent to the minister with their suggestions.
I'll double check, Mike can send that out as well too. I can just give you an executive summary, that'd be helpful.
So the other thing is, with communities of population of under 5,000, you don't have to pay for policing service from the RCMP.
But, so that would mean that the ones over 5,000 would have to cover that cost.
Well,
That would be also an unfair situation again.
They have to hire their own.
no, well, that's where it gets very confusing, because in rural municipalities, there's lots of populations in excess of 5,000 who don't pay either.
They don't pay to the government.
No, no, like us.
But we have,
See, that's where places like Coaldale are saying, you know, that we have the RCMP now, and we have, say, a dozen officers, and we're having to pay for all of them, yet, you know, you guys are getting the benefit of it. So, I don't know where it's gonna end. Go ahead.
Do you think there's gonna be more discussion on this at the RMA?
Certainly.
Okay.
Any other questions? Ken? You're next.
oh,
Just scroll this page up.
okay. On September the 4th, we had a meeting with a citizen from Diamond City. And then on the 5th, we had the county council meeting. The 12th was the service board meeting. The 16th was wage compensation. Solicitor General was on the 17th. On the 19th was county council. So that was little vote. On the
questions for Cam? Tori?
September 5th, county council meeting, 12th, Ag Service Board meeting, on the 19th, prior to council, and Dan and Rhett went through the wage compensation review with Bob and I wasn't able to attend the session earlier that week. On the 19th, county council meeting, 24th, Sustainable Ag Tour, Dwayne and the ASB staff did a great job again, great tour. 25th, coffee with council, 27th, employee recognition night, and the 28th, I attended Indian Hills Founders Day.
Any questions? Okay, Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. September 5th, County Council meeting, the 11th, Exhibition Park Board meeting, 12th, Ag Service Board, 16th, had Community Futures Region meeting and Wage Compensation Review meeting, 17th, meeting with the Minister of Justice, 19th, Council meeting, 20th, Foothills Little Bow, 24th, the Ag Sustainability Tour, and the 25th was Coffee with Council.
Any questions for Steve? Robert?
Okay, on the 5th, the county council meeting, the 6th Highway 320 meeting, 11th Colville Chamber of Commerce, 12th Southfield meeting, 16th the wage compensation review, 17th the meeting with Solicitor General, 19th county council meeting, 20th Foothills Little Bowl meeting, 24th sustainability tour, and the coffee with the county on the 25th.
Any questions for Bob? Morris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. September the 5th, County Council meeting, September the 6th, Albany Irrigation Project Association meeting, and what that one was all about were, I'm on the committee down there to get things set up for the speakers for the upcoming conference in February, and it's coming along really well. There's some pretty good ideas came forward. September the 12th, Picture with Chamber of Commerce meeting, I always go to that one, and I'll tell you, it's a good session. And September the 12th, Agriculture Service Board meeting, September the 6th, rates compensation review, County Council meeting on the 19th, the 20th, Foothills Little Bow, September the 23rd, North County Potable Water Co-op meeting, and going all right. September the 27th, Lethbridge County Employee Recognition Night.
Any questions for Morris? Boz?
September 5th, County Council meeting, September 7th, Ag Springs Parade, September 12th, Ag Service Board, 19th, County Council meeting, and had a wage compensation review meeting, and we had the meeting with the Minister in the exhibition, and then 20th, Southern Florida Energy for Waste, 24th, Sustainability Tour, 25th, Coffee with Council, 27th, Lethbridge County Employee Recognition Night.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I went for coffee with council.
I think everybody went for employee recognition, they put it down for one.
So you can just put it down on the form and just don't fill out the side, and then it'll come up on your report.
No further questions, could we have a motion to receive your information?
Well, so, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. No, we don't. Please vote now. That's carried. And it is lunchtime.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of council. As council is aware, it's been somewhat of a tradition over the last 5 years that in the fall semester we have taken a University of Lethbridge student on. The student is suggested to us by a University of Lethbridge professor. It's generally been from the geography department, and they do a small project for us at no charge to the county as part of the Applied Studies program. The student then gets some real-world experience here. So this year, Dr. Tom Johnson, the chair of the geography department, brought forward Marty Blackburn to us, who's just sitting beside me, and suggested that he would be a good student for such a project should the county wish to do so again. And after discussing it with Anne and Larry, we felt that we could accommodate that applied studies student and said yes. And so accordingly, we have Marty working with us 1 day a week for the fall semester. So this started in early September and will run through to early December. And what Marty will be working on with us is looking at our commercial industrial parks in the county, both what we have and potential opportunities for development in the future. We are starting to see some momentum coming forward. It's a good opportunity to kind of take stock of what we have and maybe improvements we can make, as well as maybe what the next generation or next phases of commercial industrial could look like. So that's what Marty will be doing with us. But I think I've said enough. You see me all the time, you know me. I'm going to turn it over to Marty to say a little bit more and tell you a little bit more about himself. So Marty, over to you.
Thank you, Martin, and hello, Mr. Chairman and Council. But yeah, as Martin introduced me, I'm Marty Blackburn. I'm a fourth year Urban and Regional Studies student at the University of Lethbridge. Originally, I'm from Stony Plain, Alberta. And yeah, I'm hoping to pursue a career in municipal government after I graduate this spring. But yeah, I'm super thankful and excited to be here at Lethbridge County and working under Martin. And I'm looking forward to learning about economic development, and yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marty, and welcome to the county. We're glad to have you here, and hopefully you enjoy your time and get some practical experience out of it that'll benefit you later on in life. And have you met everybody around?
Well, I know that you and I have met,
Yeah.
Anne and I, of course, have met, but
So,
I think I recognize some faces, but
well, Claus, if you want.
I'm Klaus van der Veen. I'm from, I'm a councillor, and I'm got Division 6 in the county, and I'm a dairy farmer.
Bob Horvath, Division 3, Department.
Tori Campbell, Division 2, Coldell area. I'm a farmer as well.
Steve Campbell, Division 5, out by Nobleford Barrens area. Good luck with your project.
Ken Benson, Division 4, that's all the west side and north Lethbridge.
great. It's really nice to meet you all. Thank you again. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman and Council.
Thank you. So what is your project kind of based on here? What do you?
So, we're still determining exact scope, but we have narrowed it down to the Lethbridge's industrial parks. My understanding there is there could be some opportunities for development, perhaps a new industrial park, or perhaps sort of working on one of the ones that we already have. I know there's some constraints with water and water management, but at this point, yeah, we haven't determined the exact scope of my project, but still in the research phase.
And we actually took a team and we went out, Marty was with us, and we actually physically went out and looked at all the industrial parks, so that was very beneficial to me, certainly, because I'm not as familiar. Hillary was our tour guide, and so he's not only learning about economic development, he's learning about planning, and I liked him right away, but then when he asked him what he wanted to do with the rest of his life, and he said he wanted to go into the public sector, I was very happy. Welcome, Marty.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we're also very fortunate with Marty because he's had actually some previous municipal administration experience. And Marty, if you maybe can just give council a quick summary of some of the things we've done for two different municipalities.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Martin. I've spent 2 summers working for the County of Parkland in the Legislative and Administrative Services, where I carried out, I guess, various clerical duties. I worked with preparing the municipal election. I worked with managing insurance of heavy-duty equipment, automotive insurance. I also worked with policy templates and developing a new template for the county parklands policies. The other municipality I worked for was Town of Stony Plain, where I worked for Family and Community Support Services as like a youth supervisor, youth mentor.
Okay, Larry?
Oh, yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just something Martin mentioned, thought I would share. You may or may not be aware, but I think it's just a small point of interest. Out of our strategic plan, of course, council's strategic plan is to develop strong relationships within the region. I think we have that with the University of Lethbridge, but specifically with the geography department. Martin Abel, Steve Hardy from Worsk, and myself are all graduates of the geography department from the University of Lethbridge. There's a 4th person sitting before us who's close to that as well, and he's not an employee of the counties at this point, but still doing that. So just, yeah, strong links there, and obviously that sort of geography and urban and regional kind of focus is, I think, a good segue for anyone thinking of getting into local government. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, again, good luck, and we look forward to seeing what you come up with. Mark?
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just say again publicly, thank you to council for your encouragement and support of the Applied Studies program and the Applied Studies students we bring on board. It really is gratifying to have that, and I think it really does make for a good partnership between the county and that important institution here locally. So I thank you, and I thank you today for your time.
Thanks very much, Martin.
Thank you.
Okay.
Martin and Marty.
So next up, we have a public hearing scheduled for 1:30-ish. Is it like 1:30-ish? Or do we need to wait-ish?
Can we wait it like 3 minutes?
Well, if you can talk that long.
Yeah, tell us a good story.
I can tell you.
Sure.
Tall tale. I feel bad that I didn't graduate from the University of Lethbridge in my geography department.
Yeah, here at Outcast.
I was in Manitoba.
I was in Ontario today.
Minorities.
And then I went to Ontario.
Larry, why did you take off after you got your study done?
Because there was a funk in Alberta in the economy. I was actually scheduled to go into the municipal internship program.
Okay.
And about 5 months before that was to occur, the Klein government at the time, made a bunch of changes and cuts, and that program was frozen essentially. So I became a post-university graduate economic refugee, I like to think or say. And
Economic refugee.
Yep.
Nicely put.
Drove north in Alberta, dropping off resumes on the way, headed west into BC, firing them off, and yeah.
But luckily he came back.
You finally saw the light.
Took a while.
Was that the trip where the waiter position came into play, or was that before that?
The waiter issue was prior to that, yes. Yeah. We better not explain that one here now.
No, probably not.
Hey, we're on camera, right?
There was one landowner who said he may come.
Well, we can wait if you can.
Could, probably very well.
OW. No.
The other one.
The other one, yeah.
Really?
Mhm. He may have just been trying to. I don't see why it wouldn't come.
Okay, change the time, yeah.
We're gonna do, Hillary and I were talking earlier, our public hard to work at a certain time, so then we don't
Mhm.
You know how sometimes we finish one early, and then a gap till the next?
Yeah.
So it'll be a little smoother.
So it'll be just a general start time.
Yeah, we'll just say like, we'll start at 10 a.m. or something, and then whichever one's first, and then we'll go finish that one, and go right into the second one. And then if there's people here, well, then they just have to, they can wait.
That kinda sounds like my friend who became a doctor, and he said, one of the best ways to get their patients load to increase, he says, is you book all the appointments for the same time. You got all those people sitting there waiting for you, and they think you were just one heck of a doctor.
Either that or they're really annoying.
Sorry to make you wait.
That's okay.
Trying to work here, so.
Yeah, she's actually got work to do. As much fun as this is, eh?
In the next 3 weeks, he said he's gonna have some back.
Trying to work on that group country residential land use strategy.
Is it coming along?
Like little 15-minute windows isn't doing it for me right now, so.
Yeah, you need big shots.
I need like a day. I think we're okay, sir.
Okay? Okay, let's,
Let's master.
could we have a motion to open a public hearing for, it's number 019-040?
Yep, that's
That's
perfect.
the right one, yeah. Clause.
Can you need to?
Yeah.
That should be before you right away. Go ahead and vote. Oh.
Can you?
That'll be it.
Good. It's carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I mentioned this morning in my planning and development quarterly report, this is our last rural-to-rural intermunicipal development plan that the county has to do to be in compliance with the Municipal Government Act changes. So this one is between Lethbridge County and Cardston County, and it's the smallest area, the interface that we have. It's a little more than 2 miles of border, and it's all pretty much, or most of it is along the part of it's on the St. Mary's, and then the Pothole Creek, I believe, is that one that goes into St. Mary's. So a lot of it is more coulee grazing land with a little bit of farmland in it. So with that, we did meet with Cardston County to discuss the IEP somewhat, and they were agreeable that Lethbridge County would undertake completing the document. It's very similar, if not very similar, to the other ones that we've done. It has referral and dispute resolution policies, policies with regards to generally land use in general, so agriculture, resources extraction, industry and energy developments, similar to our other ones. And then transportation and road networks. The affected landowners, in this case, were mailed a copy of the draft plan and were given from August the 7th to 30th to be able to provide some comments. One landowner did contact the county with regards to the information that was portrayed in many of the maps. After a conversation with that particular landowner, I explained that the maps were supposed to be very general in nature, and a lot of the information we get is either from one, our municipal development plan, or two, from the provincial database. I can't change anything in either of those particular documents, but I did note that on the CFO exclusion area map that there were some deficiencies, just when they had done the mapping, they didn't include so we did amend that, and, when we sent out the notice for the public hearing, I wrote, we sent the letters out to those same landowners and explained to them any of the changes that were made. I didn't hear any further comments from any of the affected landowners or from the general public as a result of the public hearing. So the public hearing was advertised in the September 24th and August 1st editions of the Sunny South News, and as I mentioned, it was sent directly to those affected landowners, and no comments were received. We did get a couple of comments from external agencies, Alberta Transportation, ACO Gas, TELUS, and just yesterday, I do believe I got one from ACO Pipelines, none of which had any concerns with regards to this plan. Alberta Transportation has actually been quite pleased with the plans that we've put out, just in terms of how we've incorporated Alberta Transportation considerations, because there are highways that go through all of our plan areas. So the recommendation for this IDP is that County Council would read it a second and a third time, as it meets the requirements of the Municipal Government Act. Any questions of council on this particular document?
Questions? Straightforward. So, anyone present wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone present wishing to speak in opposition? And last call, anyone present wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone present wishing to speak in favor? Anyone present wishing to speak in favor? And last call, anyone present wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none, does council have any last questions? Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the one that didn't have the open house, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Did you hear from many of the landowners by phone or anything?
Just that one landowner at the very beginning, but nobody else, when I put the notice in the paper and sent out the notice and the letters to the landowners, I didn't receive any other comments back, so.
I did receive one call. It was from Oscar. He was just wondering
Oh,
what it was, I'm sure.
okay, he never called me, so.
Yeah. Go ahead, boss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just curious, like you put it in Sunny South,
Mhm.
right? What is the paper that was out in the Cardston area that you use?
Cardston doesn't have a local paper. They advertise through their website. Oh, no, sorry, Cardston has a paper. Sorry, it's Indian County Warner. They do have a paper. I'm not sure what paper theirs is, honestly. But I know that they put it also on their website, and then when I sent them the letters, it was both sides of the boundary, county side and Cardston County side.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion to close the public hearing. So when it comes up, you can feel free to vote. And it is carried. Now,
Thank you, Hillary, very much, because I know this has been a lot of work and we're all done now.
Yes.
Celebrate.
now we could do second reading. Ken? Any discussion? Ken, when it comes up, feel free to vote. Come up, Ken.
It's not working.
That is carried. And third reading. Lon? And again, whenever you feel like voting when it comes up, please do so. just vote yes. Carried. Oh, there it is now. It's carried.
We went down the street around the corner.
And I don't believe there's anything else.
No, thank you.
Thanks, Lori. We can have a motion to adjourn. Clause? All in favor? Opposed? Oh, it's defeated.